When Karoline Leavitt walked into the courtroom, no one expected what would happen next. The judge fined her just for wearing a cross. But what he didn't know was that Karoline was no ordinary woman. She was a legal genius, about to turn the courtroom and the judge's mind completely upside down. This is a story of courage, faith, and a fight for freedom you won't forget. It started with a moment that stunned everyone in the courtroom. So sudden, so unexpected, that for a few seconds, even the sound of breathing seemed to stop. Miss Leavitt, this is a court of law, not a church. Remove that cross necklace or face a contempt charge. The judge's voice cut through the room like a sharp blade. Firm, cold, without hesitation. The air thickened with tension. All eyes turned to the young woman standing at the front. Karoline Leavitt, dressed in a navy blue suit, barely flinched. She stood tall, her posture calm but unshakably firm. Her right hand instinctively moved to the small silver cross resting just below her collarbone. Her fingers didn't fidget. They held the pendant like it was more than jewelry, like it was armor. She met the judge's eyes, not with arrogance, but with unflinching resolve. "I respectfully decline, Your Honor," she said in a clear, steady voice. "This cross represents my faith. It is not a distraction, nor has it interfered with the proceedings in any way." A hush fell over the courtroom. For a moment, it seemed the judge might reconsider. But then, bang! The gavel came down like thunder. "Fine $500 for contempt," he declared. "This is a secular courtroom. Religious displays are not appropriate." A wave of gasps rolled across the audience. Someone in the back whispered, "Is that even legal?" An older attorney leaned over to his colleague and muttered, "She's done. First day in court and already fined." But Karoline didn't look defeated. She nodded once, gently, as if the fine meant nothing compared to the principle at stake. Her face remained serene, her eyes steady. Everyone had expected her to fold, to remove the cross, to apologize, but she didn't. What no one realized yet, not the judge, not the spectators, not even her opponents, was that Karoline Leavitt wasn't just a first-time litigator. She wasn't just some fresh-faced law school grad. She was something much more dangerous to the status quo, a legal prodigy with photographic memory, a deep understanding of constitutional law, and the courage to confront authority when it overstepped. And in that moment, she wasn't just defending her faith. She was about to defend the Constitution, and she was going to do it with quiet fire. Karoline Leavitt wasn't just any attorney fresh out of law school. She was a 27-year-old constitutional law graduate who had spent the last 6 months buried in law books, court transcripts, and legal precedents, preparing for her first major appearance in court. Her case? A civil liberties lawsuit, one she believed had the power to shape future rulings across the country. But before she even had the chance to open her case file, she found herself standing at the center of unexpected controversy. The courtroom hadn't even heard her voice in full yet, and already she was fined for wearing a cross. Not shouting, not disrupting, not breaking protocol. Simply wearing a small silver cross around her neck. The room waited for her to panic, to stammer, to remove it and move on like most people would. But Karoline didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly placed her notes on the podium, lifted her chin slightly, and looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor," she said with unwavering confidence, "I will challenge this ruling on constitutional grounds." The judge blinked. He hadn't expected that. There was a slight shifting of seats as people in the courtroom leaned forward, their curiosity piqued. The judge glanced at the bailiff, then back at Karoline. "Excuse me?" She remained composed. "With respect, Your Honor, this fine violates my rights under the First Amendment. My cross is a personal expression of faith. It hasn't caused disruption, nor has it disrespected the court. Therefore, banning it has no legal basis." The judge narrowed his eyes, a mixture of annoyance and curiosity forming on his face. Are you suggesting my courtroom, has violated your constitutional rights? Karoline gave the faintest smile, not smug, but sure. She gently nodded. I'm not suggesting it, Your Honor. I'm stating it. The tension in the room grew heavier. No one expected this. A young woman standing her ground with the quiet force of someone who didn't need to raise her voice because she had the law on her side. Karoline wasn't here to pick a fight. She was here to prove a point. And she had just turned the courtroom into a stage for something far bigger than anyone imagined. The judge leaned back slowly in his chair, his eyebrows arching in a mixture of skepticism and reluctant curiosity. Very well, Miss Leavitt. Proceed. And just like that, the energy in the courtroom shifted. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation. Everyone sensed something unusual was about to happen. Karoline opened her neatly organized notes. But instead of immediately diving into complicated legal terms or quoting dense statutes, she chose a different approach, one that connected with everyone present, regardless of their legal knowledge. She looked around the room and began, imagine being told you can't wear your favorite necklace simply because someone else doesn't like it. Imagine being forced to take it off or face a fine. That isn't freedom. That's control. And it's not the kind of justice this country was founded on. The courtroom grew quiet, captivated not just by her words, but by the calm passion in her voice. She wasn't lecturing. She was telling a story, one everyone could relate to. Then she shifted gears and broadened the power of precedent. Let's look at history. In the landmark case Tinker v. Des Moines, the Supreme Court ruled that students could wear black armbands to protest a war. The government cannot suppress peaceful expression, especially when it doesn't interfere with others. She explained further, the same principle applies here. Wearing a cross is a personal expression of faith. It doesn't disrupt the court, the proceedings, or anyone's rights. So why punish it? She glanced briefly at the judge, who now sat forward, resting his chin thoughtfully on his hand. Karoline's voice grew firmer. Respecting the law means protecting every citizen's rights equally, whether they wear a cross, a Star of David, or a headscarf. The Constitution does not pick favorites. Then, smoothly, she transitioned into the heart of her case, defending a group of workers who had been wrongfully fired for refusing to work on their religious holidays. My clients simply asked for respect of their religious practices. They didn't ask for special treatment, only fairness. As she laid out the facts, the courtroom watched as her logic unfolded clearly, like pieces of a puzzle fitting perfectly. By the end of her opening statement, even the opposing counsel, normally stern and unyielding, wore a look of quiet respect. Karoline wasn't just presenting a case. She was reshaping minds. The judge's gavel hit the bench once more, signaling a short recess. He slowly stood, his face unreadable but his steps deliberate. As he walked off the bench, he paused near Karoline's table, his eyes meeting hers with a hint of respect. "You've done your homework," he said quietly, almost as if admitting defeat, but with a tone that carried grudging admiration. The courtroom immediately buzzed with whispered conversations. Some attendees exchanged surprised glances. Many were embarrassed that a young woman, clearly less experienced, had just schooled the judge on constitutional law. Others, however, felt a different emotion entirely, something more inspiring. They saw Karoline's calm strength and clarity as a beacon of hope, a fresh breath of justice. One woman sitting in the gallery leaned toward her friend and whispered in awe, "She's not just brave, she's brilliant." Outside the courtroom, reporters quickly pulled out their phones, capturing the moment that was quietly becoming something much bigger than anyone anticipated. Meanwhile, the judge retreated to his chambers, closing the door behind him with a deep sigh. Sitting at his desk, he pulled out his legal pads and began to carefully review the notes from Karoline's statements. One by one, he checked the cases she had referenced. The First Amendment rights, Tinker v. Des Moines, and other precedents. Every citation was accurate, every argument tightly woven and sound. The realization hit him hard. He had acted hastily, trying to suppress a symbol of faith without legal justification. In his haste, he had underestimated the young woman before him, a woman who knew the law better than many seasoned attorneys he'd seen in his long career. More than that, he understood something deeper. This was not just a courtroom fight. This was a lesson in humility and respect for constitutional rights. For the first time in the day, the judge felt the weight of his own mistake. It wasn't just about a necklace or a fine anymore. It was about justice, fairness, and the very principles that held their country together. And from this moment on, his view of the case, and perhaps the law itself, would never be the same. When the court reconvened after the recess, something had changed. The tension in the room had shifted from confrontation to contemplation. You could almost feel the weight of new respect hanging in the air. The judge looked directly at Karoline, his expression serious but sincere. "Miss Leavitt," he said, his voice steady, "I owe you an apology. You were right to stand your ground. Your fine is reversed, and your constitutional rights have been affirmed." The courtroom erupted in applause. The sound filled the room like a wave of relief and approval. Even the bailiff, who had been watching quietly, cracked a rare smile. It was a moment of justice and acknowledgement that few could have predicted. Karoline, however, didn't let the applause distract her. She simply gave a small, respectful nod and said, "Thank you, Your Honor. Now, may I proceed with the case?" She wasn't here for a personal victory or recognition. She was here to fight for others, people whose voices had been silenced or ignored. Karoline went on to present her case with the same clarity, passion, and precision that had already won over the judge and the courtroom. She argued on behalf of a group of workers who had been fired for refusing to work on their religious holidays, a simple request for respect and fairness that had been denied. Her legal arguments were solid, her evidence clear, and when the final decision came, Karoline won. The court ruled in favor of the workers, protecting their right to practice their faith without fear of losing their jobs. By the end of the day, the judge wasn't just impressed. He was humbled. He realized how much he had underestimated Karoline's knowledge and character. Outside the courthouse, reporters quickly gathered around Karoline, eager to hear her thoughts. One asked, "Karoline, weren't you scared to challenge the judge, especially so early in your career?" She smiled, calm and confident. "I wasn't trying to win a fight. I was trying to remind everyone that the law protects all of us equally, even if you're young, even if you're underestimated, and yes, even if you wear a cross." Her words resonated far beyond the courtroom walls, inspiring many who heard her story. This story teaches us that the path to justice and standing up for our rights is never easy. Sometimes, something as simple as a necklace can spark a powerful fight. Karoline Leavitt showed us that courage, knowledge, and standing firm for what you believe in are the true sources of strength. She wasn't just a lawyer. She became a symbol for everyone who wants to raise their voice, no matter how young or inexperienced they may be. So never underestimate yourself when it comes to defending your rights. Truth and justice always shine bright. It's just a matter of walking the path. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss more stories like this.